on the This Week in Android. I'm your host, Ashley Esqueda, and in studio, Mark Jeffrey isn't here this week. But I do have the fantastic senior editor at Mashable.com, Barb Dybwad, with me today. Hello, my dear.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me back. I had to come back after last week. I just didn't get enough, is what it is.
And I really wanted you back mostly because of the tattoos. I was so excited. They're so fabulous, and you are so much fun to talk to, and old school video games. Retro games and tattoos, pretty much two biggest reasons.
I mean, and Android. I mean, what else do you need? That's like a 1, 2, 3 punch.
Yes, it's a 1, 2, 3 punch. That's a step above.
That's right.
1, 2 punching. So, and we also have a really cool app of the week this week, Car Locator with Eddie Kim. He'll be joining us on Skype, and let's get right into it. Huge news this week.
Yes, there is. Dun dun
Apple
dun.
sues HTC.
Sues the heck out of HTC.
20 patents.
Yeah, not 1, not 2.
20.
20.
That is as many fingers and toes as I have. That's a lot of freaking patents.
Actually, they couldn't count any higher than that because,
they had to say, well, I don't have any more fingers or toes left, so let's just do for 20.
Yep,
let's go for 20. Man, I can't believe it.
It's we're gonna be covering this story for a while, I think. I don't think this will be resolved anytime soon. I think this is gonna be one of those that gets dragged out for a long time in the courts, paying a lot of lawyers' fees, keeping a lot of them keeping food on the table,
keeping lawyers' families fed.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's what this suit is actually about.
I'm very curious to know why now. Because we all know what this is about. It's about Android.
Right.
Do you think they're worried?
I think it's less about them being worried and more about it's sort of routine thing that companies have to do. I mean, we know we just saw Nokia suing the pants off of Apple as well for a similar, we've had these mobile patents forever and you're using them type of thing. They need to defend their turf. They need to defend their territory, and if it, results in getting some actual financial compensation for these patents, many of which are very broad, that's going to be great for Apple, but it could be bad news to consumers in the meantime. I mean, I hope it doesn't come to anything as drastic as that, but we'll be watching. I definitely think that, for me, I definitely think that, especially with mobile patent lawsuits, or just mobile patents, it's a mess. A patent law is just such a mess. I mean, to be able to patent an idea, I'm sort of two minds on that, where it's I get that it's your idea, but if you can't put it into use, if you can't make it function, then if somebody else makes it work, shouldn't it be theirs? Or should you share? Or, yeah.
I mean, and I'm also, Steve Jobs, I have to tell you how I imagine Steve Jobs. He seems like a nice guy, but I imagine him, when I read things like this, I imagine him inside a castle with a cat, on a chair in a giant throne, but it's all unibody aluminum. The entire throne room is unibody aluminum, and he's sitting there going, wonderful. Yes, we're suing HTC.
Is he doing the evil?
Yeah, except the Dr. Evil thing, we're going to sue them for $10 billion. And that's how I see him. I see him as just everything's going according to plan. He has some book somewhere. He has the iPad. He has a magical tablet that has the future. He's everything's going according to the prophecy. It's
the iPad.
Yeah, it must be kicking out prophecies. That'll be a new app on the iPad. iProphecy.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I need it. I would buy an iPad if that were the case. I'd be I think I'm going to get one of those.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was actually, speaking to your point about the patent system, there was a good piece in Slate about this lawsuit, and one of the things that they mentioned is basically this is terrible for consumers for a number of reasons, not the least of which that the patent system is totally broken for a lot of those reasons that you're describing. And Engadget had another article about how a lot of these patents are very broad and very sort of deep in the operating system, can apply to a lot of things, and I think that can be dangerous. There has to be some kind of balance between companies protecting their intellectual property and kind of overstepping their boundaries and squashing innovation from other
just for the sake of
manufacturers.
It's mine,
right?
Like my patent, my multi-touch zoom,
right?
No can has like it's I definitely I worry about innovation. Innovation for the sake of innovation. Sometimes not a good idea, but in terms of patents and holding back innovation because of that, like I'm not on board with that, and I don't think any consumer is.
Yeah, definitely. So let's hope that this does not impinge on any of that.
Let's head on to our app of the week. We have Eddie Kim. And this week, our app of the week, quite a sensation this week on the internet. We have Car Locator as our app of the week. And right now with us on Skype is Eddie Kim, who created Car Locator. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad I got a hold of you. I looked everywhere for your number, and I had to like hunt you down. And you're a tough man to get a hold of.
No, I'm glad to be here, though.
So tell us a little bit about. I'll just really briefly tell you that tell everybody, our viewing audience, that right now Car Locator on Android Market is making approximately $13,000 a month. And so I will let Eddie take it from there and just tell us a little bit about how the app, how you decided to make it, what the process was in terms of what you started with and what you are now dealing with, because I think that's such a amazing story.
Yeah, it all started, I guess, back in around September. I was kind of hearing more and more about Android, and I really wanted to learn it. So around that time, we went on vacation with my family, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of pick up a couple books and learn about Android, and that's exactly what I did. So after learning a little bit about it, I decided to start on my first app, which was Car Locator. It was just kind of a random idea. And it wasn't the first Car Locator app, so it's nothing, I can't claim to have come up with the idea. But it was something that seemed pretty simple and would be a good kind of thing to start Android programming on. And that was released, I think, in September. I spent about maybe 2 or 3 weeks of it on it, developing, just getting out the basic version of it.
Okay, and then you have, as of right now, how many downloads do you have for, I know you said there's a paid version and a free version of the app, so how many downloads have you had for each one, off the top of your head?
So I think now the free version has about 70,000 downloads, and the paid version has about 7,500, around there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it actually only started picking up until like recently. When I was first released, it wasn't making that much money. It was just kind of like $2 or $4 a day. But then around that time, I entered it into the Android Developer Challenge Part 2. That was the second contest that Google was holding to kind of promote the Android operating system. And so I entered it, and like much to my surprise, I found out that I was picked as one of the finalists in the travel category. And along with that came a lot of press, and people started hearing more about Car Locator. And I think that was when around the time where I wrote my first blog post on it, and I was like really happy because it was making $20 a day, and I was like, well, I could buy lunch with this money now, or like lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
So just moving on, the results finally came out, and I found out I actually got third place in that contest. And along with that came a $25,000 prize, which was like super, super exciting. I never wanted anything like that before in my life. And then it really started getting some press, and then at that point it was making like $100 a day. And also around that time I raised the price from $2 to $4. And then what's really gone to go crazy was it just kind of got picked to be featured on the Android apps featured list. And after that, the sales has been like skyrocketing, like $400, $500, $600 a day. And it's just kind of been crazy since then.
Well, I definitely think you got something going with Android in terms of all the new devices that are coming out. Once every what is it, like 2 seconds now.
Yeah, yeah.
But I definitely think a lot of people are going to be continuing to download Car Locator. And do you have any questions? I saw you writing some notes.
Did you say this is your first? Do you have a background in programming, or this is your first mobile app, or this is your first foray into programming?
Yeah, I mean, I studied electrical engineering in school, which kind of encompasses a little bit of programming, but I wasn't like a computer science major or anything like that. But ever since I graduated, I've been doing probably more programming than actual like electrical engineering type stuff. But I never really had any experience developing on a mobile device, so that was definitely new. But programming, I definitely had like a pretty good like fundamental like baseline to work off of there.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's some crazy success for a first time attempt. Do you feel like you want to port it to other operating systems, or do you want to work with iPhone, or what's sort of next for you in terms of development history?
I mean, I really like programming on the Android platform, actually. I sort of looked into iPhone like very, very briefly, and then I kind of found out that I needed to actually buy a Macintosh to write an application for the iPhone. So that was kind of the end of that. I don't think I'm gonna. I mean, now maybe I could if I had some more time, but I'm pretty happy. Like I feel like I have a good grasp of how the Android platform works. So I kind of want to just keep stay where I am. I don't really want to learn something completely new.
Now, one of our chat people who are watching the show right now asked what you think about the current state of the Android market. And forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I'm imagining that he is asking about, I'm assuming, the openness of the Android market. And what are your thoughts on how everything is going?
I think it's really exciting. I heard last week that Canada might be getting paid applications now, and every day it seems like I hear like new phones coming out, and I think those are all kind of like positive things for developers because every time a new phone comes out, every time a new country gets access to paid apps, it's developers are making more money, and I think it's like this to me. It's like a very real. I think it's still in a very early stage, and I'm kind of excited about the future of Android.
So do you have your Android phone handy, Eddie?
I do.
You want to give us a little tour of Car Locator?
Sure. Okay. Let me just start this.
Show
up.
all of our watchers out, all of our viewing audience out there how your app works.
Yeah.
Dude,
so it's actually a really simple app. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So pretty much, I'm in a big parking lot, like at a mall or something, and I'm afraid I'm gonna forget where I parked my car. So I just hit save right here. This saves my location, and it'll just store wherever I hit that button into my phone. And then next time I am out looking for my car, let's say I'm done shopping, I just start it up again, and it's automatically gonna put a little red dot. I don't know if you can see that there. The red dot is where my car is, and the green dot is where I am right now. And you have like kind of a map view at the bottom, and then a radar view at the top. So as you kind of turn around, like orient yourself, you can see the red dot
I see.
moves in the direction of your car. So all you have to do is really get that red dot in front of you, and then just walk in that direction. And then as the car gets closer to you, that red dot will get closer to the center of that radar.
Well, that is very cool. Are you developing any other apps right now that you would like to talk about, or that you are that are already out?
Yeah, actually, this is actually my second app. The very first app I wrote was called Print and Mail Photos. My full-time job is I'm in a startup company. It's called Pickwing.com, and it's really just a photo printing company. And what the app does is it lets you take pictures from your phone, and you just hit send. It automatically prints that photo you just took and mails it out to kind of a distribution list of your friends and family. So a lot of maybe parents will use it to take pictures of their kids and have it automatically sent to the grandparents.
Oh, cool. One of our other readers would like to know, how accurate is Car Locator?
So it's only as accurate as your GPS. And from my experience, I can find my car within about maybe 10 to 20 feet. So I think it's pretty accurate.
Nice.
You mentioned that there were other similar types of apps in the store already when you made yours. What do you think is responsible for yours sort of breaking away from the pack and having that success? It reminds me a little bit of whenever you see on TV people trying to, oh, we're going to zoom in on their GPS location with the little radar beep, 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 beep. Reminds me of that.
I think it was like partially like a lot of work that I put into it. Every week I'm kind of doing updates on it. So, I mean, what I just showed you is like the core of Car Locator, but it has a lot of features that I've added on to the application week after week. And I think over time it's grown into like a pretty powerful and significant application that has a lot of features on it. So I think that that's definitely helped a lot. And also like definitely winning the Android developer competition was a huge boost, and getting featured and other things that you can't really count on all the time. But I think it was just partially like a lot of hard work and a lot of luck too.
Do you know anything about the process of getting onto that featured list? Is that something that Google are they picking that sort of, editorially, or how does one get on that list?
I have no idea. Like, sorry. Let me turn off my phone. It's just I just woke up one morning and I saw my sales were 5 times what it normally is. And I didn't know why. And eventually, my friend told me, "Oh, I saw it on the featured list." And so I wasn't even contacted or anything. I have no idea how to applications.
Cool.
That's awesome.
It's cool that it can have that dramatic in effect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, totally. It's been wild.
That's I'm just blown away at the fact that somebody can still, and I definitely think that it would be I'll pose this question to you, Eddie. Do you think that if you had developed, hypothetically speaking, if you had developed Car Locator for something like the iPhone or for WebOS even, do you think you would have an easier time or a harder time getting notoriety?
I think definitely it's really, really hard to get noticed if you develop and release something on the Apple market, just because there's so many apps out there right now. And from what I hear, it actually takes like a lot of marketing and running ads and things like that on other people's apps and things like that. I think Android's kind of like in this, in my opinion, like this sweet spot where it's not so big that developers can't get noticed like in Apple. But it's big enough that you can actually make like not a super like huge amount of money, but not an insignificant amount of money either.
Right.
So I think it's in kind of, at least from a developer's perspective, I think it's like prime time.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Well, I'm impressed. So, and also, I guess my last question would be, I've heard a lot about piracy. I've heard people are pirating your app, sir. And, which is, I'm all for pirates, but maybe not piracy. I'm all for piracy out in the open seas, but maybe not.
Yar.
Yar. But maybe not for apps where people could be making money, especially with indie developers like yourself. How do you feel about people pirating your app? I'm just curious.
At first it was a little flattering because it's like, I kind of joked about it, like, wouldn't it be funny if I looked online and someone, like, people were pirating or they had a crack for it or something like that. I'm not too worried about it. It's happening, and my attitude is that a lot of people who pirate software, like, they probably wouldn't buy it anyways, even if you were to kind of close off that loop. So, I don't really feel like I'm losing too much. But then again, I haven't really looked into the numbers on how often it's getting pirated. But I don't think it's a huge issue.
Cool. Well, I think
Yeah.
I think we have literally asked you every question we can possibly think of. And again, that's to my ineptitude as a host. I miss Mark. Mark always has these great, like, you have good, insightful questions too. I'm always like, so what are you gonna do with all that cool money? Like, you know, like, are you gonna go to Disneyland this year? But thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And anytime you develop a new app, shoot it over to us and we'll check it out, and maybe we'll feature you again because we'd love to have you.
I will let you know.
All right, everybody, that is Eddie Kim with Car Locator, and he is our app, and Car Locator is our app of the week. So let's do some open lines.
Let's do it. Open the lines.
Open the lines. All right. So I wasn't really sure what we were going to do this week with open lines. So I thought to myself, I think I will take something that Mark Jeffrey sent me and we'll make it an open line. And it's actually an article that was written on Mashable.com by one of your enterprising young bucks. And it is actually 6 free Android apps that will make you drop your iPhone. And wanted to talk about it, all 6 of them. Obviously, the big, the obvious one would be Gmail, Google Calendar. Free, comes with phone, links up between your Android phone and your Google account, totally seamless.
Yeah, it's just really nice. The whole setup process of the Android phone too is great because you just put in your Gmail account, it sucks down all of your contacts, and the seamless integration with, if you already use this stuff, and if you don't, it's a great reason to start, just because the integration is so right there. I would say though also, if you don't like the native Gmail app that comes with it, there's also a great app called Canine Mail that's worth checking out. So if you just want some alternatives, which is also free, so I'd recommend that too. But yes, the integration, it's just so easy, it's got that sort of Apple-esque, I almost hate to say it, but it's where it's just it just works.
Yeah, it just works.
Yeah.
Now there's 2 conflicting chatters in our chat room. Somebody had mentioned they thought the Nexus One, you have a Nexus One.
Yes.
So does that integrate with Google Apps? Because I'm assuming that a lot of Android phones don't have Google Apps. Now, does Nexus One have that?
Not very well. I mean, you can do it. You have to kind of spelunk a little bit harder and find some settings, and certain things don't work, and certain things are one directional instead
why
of 2.
Do you think
which
that is?
It's weird.
It's their proprietary software. I mean, it's Google. It belongs to Google. So why not make that as clean and polished as everything, as Calendar and Gmail?
I can only assume it's coming. I mean, we have to assume that users of Google Apps are a subset of people who use the more general tools, Gmail and Google Calendar. So we're talking about a smaller segment of the market. I'm sure that they want to address it, and I'm sure we're going to see more of a push in terms of Android and the enterprise too, which is exactly when they're going to really want to roll out much better, tighter, integrated, full-featured support for Google Apps. I'm sure it's coming. It's going to be a matter of time.
The dreaded developer soon.
Yeah.
Trademark.
When it's ready.
Yes, when it's ready. Okay, so we've done Gmail and Calendar. Also, Google Voice, obviously. Huge deal.
Google Voice is awesome, and I actually just noticed or discovered a new feature the other day when I had to do an interview, which is that you can do call recording through Google Voice. You can't do it if you're calling out, but if you get someone to call you on your Google Voice number, you can just hit 4 at any time to start recording. And it's so simple, and there are laws surrounding what you can record. So it has a little notification, this call is being recorded, and the listener can hear that too. And then the actual audio file is saved right in your Google Voice inbox. So it's awesome if you have to do interviews or if you want, reference at any point later.
Interviews, that's great. I mean, for somebody like yourself who's writing for Mashable, I mean, if you've got to interview somebody in tech, and you can't get every single word, or you're not interviewing through email
or Skype.
Or Skype. That's a fantastic, fantastic tool for you to use.
Oh yeah, and it's so easy. Just it's built right in. You don't have to install another third-party app. Just hit 4 and.
Well, and pretty much with Android being the only one that has a true Google Voice app. I mean, WebOS, it was a third-party developer, but then they changed the API, and it broke. And he was just like, I can't. Yeah, he was like, I can't develop this anymore. So he's like, I'm not going to put out a product that doesn't work. So I'm just going to pull it. And so he just took it out. And so there's no more Google Voice on WebOS. And obviously, Apple's no. That's a big fat no.
But it's great. I mean, the number portability too, I think, is just, especially as people start to cycle through phones a lot more, and I think people have less loyalty to who their carrier is, and porting their number every time is a big hassle. So this is sort of a way to just say, you know what, I might change phones as often as other people change shoes.
I might go from a Droid to a Nexus One, but I'll still have that Google Voice and everything's good, and I don't have to, even though you can transfer your number from carrier to carrier.
It's a hassle.
That's kind of a hassle. So you can always just say, well, just in case something horrible happens and I can't keep the same number, I can at least have Google Voice.
You can print your business cards once and not have to reprint them. It's a beautiful thing.
Yes, very nice. And then also, if anybody's into playing the stock market, which for me personally, I think I'd be a little bit terrified to at this point. There's also Google Finance, so you can watch your stock, like Palms, for example, crash through the floor a couple days ago. Which I don't mean to laugh at Palm, because, quite frankly, everybody, I own a Palm. I own a Palm Pre, and so it made me very sad to see how badly they did this week. Oh God, that was so painful.
Yeah.
But hey, if you own, I don't own Palm stock, so but if you did and you had Google Finance,
you could have
they
seen
might
that.
as well have just had a slip and slide. Just right down through the floor. I think it's all like $6 now, or it's just really, they're hurting pretty bad. So, but Google Finance, you could have that on your phone, which is great.
To watch how bad everybody else is doing. Oh.
Or how great you're doing, if you're Steve Jobs.
Exactly.
You could watch it go the opposite direction.
Fun for the whole family.
Or if you're with Google, if you own Google stock, also up through the ceiling.
That's very meta. Nice. Very meta.
Yes.
Totally.
We're getting meta. We're getting meta now. You would like to watch your Google stock skyrocket in Google Finance. But it streams directly from the actual Google Finance site, and it will give you real-time stock information. Which, like I said, for the small amount of people who are still brave enough to play the stock market, I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you need that data in real time. That's exactly. You want it right now, because you need to make that decision in a split second. So,
and we are definitely in a world of right now.
Yes, we are.
Not yesterday, not in 2 minutes, right this second.
Exactly, real time, baby.
My favorite free app for Android, NESoid.
I was gonna say, I saw that in the show notes and was like, we're gonna get you to talk about that.
I know.
This retro gamer here.
There's so much right about NES emulation. Don't get me wrong, everybody. I play Dragon Age right now. I'm obsessed with it. I absolutely love Dante's Inferno. I play World of Warcraft fairly religiously. I raid in 25-man, for those of you who care. And everyone's like, I don't care about this. And but the thing is there's something so awesome to me about 8-bit NES games. Like Maniac Mansion is probably one of my favorite games of all time. So the fact that you can carry that around in your cell phone is quite literally the best thing since sliced bread to me. So that's just me. And and a lot of people have complained about emulators in the past being really buggy and just being a big problem. And but this, from all intent and purposes and reviews that I've read, a lot of people love this particular emulator.
Cool. So what would you be most excited about playing on that?
Well, Maniac Mansion's hard because I still haven't gotten all 6 of the endings, but I love my favorite NES games. I would have to say Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, and probably trying to think of a later non-platformy game. I don't know. I really liked Metroid too. Metroid was great. I just, like I'm I like the old school, but and obviously everybody, I have a big soft, squishy place in my heart for Super Mario Brothers 3. So.
And you can have all that right on your phone.
And more.
It's a good time to be alive, people. That's all I have to say.
You can carry an NES in your pocket.
Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah, who would have guessed? Yeah, exactly. Like 20 years ago, who was like, you know what? We're going to have phones that you can carry with you anywhere, and you're going to be able to play Nintendo from that phone. And people are like, you're a lunatic. Like, we're gonna throw you in Shutter Island. Like you're going to be visiting Leo DiCaprio in Shutter Island in a year. But that
reminds me of
great.
that story that just started making the rounds again this week about I think it was in 1995, an article in Newsweek that was like, this internet thing, it'll never take off.
I saw that.
Who needs any of this?
The professor was like, I'm so embarrassed for writing that article. There's a guy who wrote an article in, I think it's InfoWorld this week, saying Android was doomed.
Oh.
He used the word doomed. Like, Android is doomed.
Uh-oh.
Like, he was very...
Better throw this out there.
I know. You know what? You should hand it over to me, and I'll make sure it gets incinerated.
Oh, okay. You'll take care of
totally
disposal?
Fine.
Okay.
Definitely will.
Good. Very good.
So, but, like, he was just like, no, Android is doomed. Like, it's because of the way that all the updates were being pushed out. Like, it's not consistent or even, and that basically they were sort of shooting themselves in the foot. Oh, excuse me. And they were shooting themselves in the foot by, having sort of this haphazard way of doing things, which, from what I've seen on this petition about the Android marketplace, is actually one of the biggest complaints about the Android marketplace is that it's very haphazard and all over the place.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say that was one of the first things that I noticed as one of my bigger complaints after getting, my first taste of Android was, what do you mean I can't update all of my apps at once?
Yeah.
What do you mean I don't have an update all button? It gets kind of ridiculous, too.
That's a big deal, especially when you have 30, 40 apps and 10 of them get updated.
I'm definitely an app, enthusiast, so I go and download, 100 at once. I'm like, and then come back a week later and it's like
20 updates.
35 of them need updates. Okay.
and then
how many button presses? Really?
Right, and you have to be aware of what's going on your phone, which is, that's ridiculous. I can think of, to put it in perspective, I can think of the Curse WoW add-on.
Oh, yeah.
If you subscribe, you can update all at the same time, and that's fine. But for something like a cell phone in an app store, you have to be able to update all. You're on the go. It's not like you're sitting at your desktop, you're waiting to raid or log in or whatever,
right.
And you can just download one by one as you're, tweeting about how you're going to raid tonight or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You have to be able to update everything.
That's one of those little user interface niceties where there is still a little bit of a gap in terms of polish.
Yeah.
To close that gap.
And I wouldn't even call it a nicety. I'd call it a necessity. That's like saying air is a nicety. Like having air to breathe. That's a nicety that I would like to have.
It is nice.
You need it.
Air.
Phones need that. Okay, and the last, we're totally getting off topic. We're tangent girls. Is Open Home, last free app. It's a customization app available on the market, and it will. Basically, you can pretty much replace your entire home screen and customize it at your will.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of the great benefits of Android, which paradoxically, oddly, I haven't done too much of. I know Open Home is one of the favorites. I did actually just recently start using Slide Screen, which is another customization. You can either use it as a home screen replacement or you can use it in conjunction with the regular home screen and choose at any given time whether you want to perform an action in the original launcher or in Slide Screen. But it kind of brings in a bunch of, aggregates information. You can sign in with Twitter, sign in with Facebook, and it'll bring in sort of your top social, incoming pings and then your news feeds and kind of more of a dashboard view of actually what's going on for you in terms of your actual communication realm, as opposed to here are the apps that you have.
Here's they just throw everything in the kitchen sink.
Right, or if you have the news widget, here's your news. But it's really cool. I like Slide Screen a lot. I'm excited to try out some of the other customization apps. I haven't really dove into it too much. I hear a lot of things about, oh, it slows down the performance of your handset type of thing, and I mean, I also like just the default view. Like, I like looking at that shiny.
It is really nice. I mean, I can see the appeal in customizing and having your own icons and themes and all this stuff. But I can also see the appeal in just the normal screen. You know, it's really, I think it's really well done. So, and I know Fly App is one of the apps that we will potentially be having on as App of the Week. It's actually a really neat little thing if you haven't seen it. Like you, instead of, you don't have to unlock your phone. Like you can pick widgets that will show up when you hit your when you make the phone live again. When you wake it up. And it'll show you a little widget, like say you want a Twitter widget, so that you don't have to unlock the phone and open Twitter and blah, blah, blah. Like, it'll have a little widget that you can have on your screen while it sleeps.
That's kind of nice, actually, because I think about that a lot when I'm, trying to do something on the phone. And you even have to unlock the phone just to turn down the volume. And that's, that can be sort of, I just want to, why doesn't this button just work?
Work, damn it. Yeah, so that's our open lines for today. And let's do the news. Well, obviously the biggest news of the week is Apple versus HTC, but Google, coming right out of the gate, defends HTC with their giant white stallion and sword. They're just riding into town. They're like, no, we are not a party to this lawsuit. However, we stand behind our Android operating system and the partners who helped us develop it.
Fair damsel, we will come to your aid.
Exactly, and it makes me wonder if they're going to throw some money behind this to HTC, or some kind of legal help, or this makes me very curious as to how they're sort of behind closed doors kind of helping HTC with their case.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. I think they have a lot of incentive to support HTC in the lawsuit, even though it's not them named directly. We all know what the suit's about. They obviously have a huge vested interest.
We can read between the lines.
Yeah, we've got some noodles up here. They've got definitely a vested interest in having the outcome of this suit go in HTC's favor. So, I'm sure there may be some legal implications in of how precisely they can get involved, but I wouldn't be surprised if they come out swinging with more support than just here's a letter to TechCrunch type of thing.
Yeah.
But it was certainly an unusual thing for them to come out almost of the blue, ostensibly, in terms of the just actual
flat out show of support. Like, hey,
yeah,
we're here. We're not going anywhere. We stand behind our product. Not like, because a lot of companies would just hide and they'd be like, well, let's see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And then we'll make a statement once we sort of see where the balance is tipped. We'll kind of make a statement then, and so very bold move.
Yeah,
it's a big game of chess.
Well, that's how Google rolls, Yeah. They're not going to be hiding.
They don't ask those crazy job application questions for nothing.
That's right. Exactly.
And another huge, obviously biggest one of the biggest companies in the world, Microsoft, getting into the Android game.
Yes.
They added this tag application. Adding a tag application.
Indeed.
Basically, for those of you who have not read, but a lot of our readers are very well informed. All of our watchers, very well informed. It's you can scan a tag anywhere you see one, in a magazine, and a brochure, signs, storefronts. And you can access informational like videos, text, since they were talking about maybe coupons that you were able to download. But the big thing is you have to find a tag. That's the big sort of...
Yeah, catch-22.
Seems like a problem.
Yeah, and the other thing about this is that tag is Microsoft's proprietary version of a technology that other people know as QR codes. It's sort of, Microsoft's flavor of a standard that already exists. So I think it's really interesting that they've chosen this particular app as their first foray into Android, which not only gets them in the door in terms of Android, but it's specifically pushing a proprietary Microsoft
property
initiative,
odd.
Which I think is not a good move. I think they should support the QR code standard that
Right.
already exists, that you might actually see.
It's a proven
from time
standard,
to time.
right? It's a proven standard that already exists, and when 7 Mobile comes out, they can go with that. It makes me think that somehow they're trying to like hedge their bets for 7 Mobile, and then we're just gonna have proprietary tag. Like this would worry me if I were desperate to have a Windows 7 mobile phone, because what if they say, oh, it's tag or nothing?
Right,
Like
right.
you either find a tag or no QR reader for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a common move that we see a lot from big companies like this. I can think of Sony with their whole memory stick, insistence for so long, despite the fact that SD was already an accepted standard. And more recently, they actually started supporting SD, which is an interesting sort of end point to
Conceding.
Yeah, to what can happen when there is a standard. And it's an emerging technology, too. It's not like this is an established thing where they can come out and say, we have this great competing system that does X, Y, and Z. This is still something that's not really there yet. I think the actual technology of let's use a small recognizable symbol to stand for a lot more information where people can just access it through their phones, I think that will be popular. I think that will take off.
Yeah.
But I think if Microsoft wants to get to that world, we would get there a lot faster if they would embrace a standard as opposed to trying to
a global
fragment.
standard, right? Josh on the web in our chat room just said, this move has Microsoft written all over it. Look at Internet Explorer, which is very true, and they still think they're big enough to strong-arm the market. And I think that they can be big enough to strong-arm the market in some places, but I definitely think that the mobile market is, I just don't think it's one of them, especially on an operating system that's not theirs. Like that, it seems arrogant to me. That's what it is. It seemed like, oh, we're Microsoft. We're just going to put out our own proprietary QR reader, and we're going to hope that we force everybody into using it, which, you just never know. But and then you have I don't think it'll ever happen. But I will agree with Rob. They are colorful. They do look prettier. Their tags do look prettier and more colorful than QR.
Okay.
We'll
give
you
them that.
Yeah, we'll give them that. So, the next piece we have is the HTC Incredible rumor mill, potentially delayed. We've been seeing a lot of pictures leaking finally over the last couple weeks about the Incredible. Looks very cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
With those
red accents, that's really signature.
Very polarizing. I'm sure people will be like, I hate those things, but
Right.
But some people are like, those are sweet. But a lot of people saying that there's a potential that they are being delayed now. A lot of talk has been about how on the Nexus One there's some multi-touch issues, that the axis seems to be flipped, and it has to do with the screen and some of the hardware that they use, and that the Incredible uses the same screen. So, do you think that they're kind of holding it off to see if they can fix the problem, or do you think that that it's just a rumor? Or
I mean, it makes sense. I haven't particularly noticed any multi-touch issues myself, but I know that a number of people have complained about that in certain applications, and it seems widespread enough to think that there might be something there, and it behooves them to definitely look into it and make sure that it is totally rock solid for a launch. So, I mean, that could be one reason, but there are, any number of reasons that things can be delayed, and engineering delays and manufacturing delays, and it could really be anything.
Verizon delays.
Verizon
we all
delays.
know they kind of like to delay things sometimes.
Indeed, and for any number of reasons, and we'll see it when we see it, and it'll be red
again,
and it'll be cool
when it's done. When it's finished,
when it's ready.
So, Google Gesture Search launched in the Android market. And I think that it's very fledgling, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on it as somebody who writes for a blog like Mashable. Like, what what do you think the sort of niche, or where do you think gesture search is going to sort of find itself?
I think it's interesting in sort of this pantheon that Google has really been taking with Android in terms of alternate ways of interacting with these devices and getting really experimental with it. I mean, even, you know, voice search and, you know, Google Goggles, visual search, just kind of exploring different ways that we might be interacting with these devices. And I think handwriting is certainly another area where, you know, there could be more stuff that makes it easier to just, you know, draw instead of using the virtual keypad. I think you're right, though. It is pretty fledgling, and having it be a separate app that you have to actually call up and say, I am now going to use my handwriting gestures.
Instead of just putting it directly into the source code and saying,
right,
you can do this at any time.
If it were more, you know, a lower level and accessible to other applications where you know, in any window, if you're in the browser and you want to just use gestures instead of using the keyboard, I think then it would start to be more powerful. But you know, it also sort of makes sense. Let's launch it as an app first. Let's see how people react, see how it works, fix the remaining bugs, whatever. And then, presumably, if it does well, we will see it come more lower level into the operating system.
Something interesting someone had actually mentioned to me when I had brought up the gesture swipe was that it would be something that a lot of disabled people would be able to use in terms of as opposed to if they didn't have, like, let's say they didn't have all of their fingers and they couldn't use, you know, if they had something like the Nexus One, they couldn't type. Like, they could use this to search. And I thought that was really interesting, an interesting application, and potentially something that we don't see a lot in mobile phones, which is something that's, you know, disability accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think with all these things, too, it's you know, addresses issues of accessibility. It also just addresses issues of, you know, each person relates to a device differently and has their own preferred ways of interacting with it. Even last week when we were talking about with the Droid keyboard, you know, it's there, but I rarely use it. Other people love it, use it all the time. It depends more on your preferences and how you work, how you interact with the device. So I think bringing in more ways to get data in and out, more ways to relate to that device, the more the merrier, I think.
More users.
Yeah.
More usability, more users.
Appeals to a wider range of people.
That's
definitely.
A good point. That's a really good point. So our next piece of news is that AT&T is getting the Motorola backflip. And you would imagine that on an Android device, you would have Google search. And that is not the case. We are apparently getting Yahoo search with the Motorola backflip on AT&T, and I'm not really sure what to think of that.
It's interesting, right? It reminds me of not too long ago also there was a kerfuffle about Verizon switching the default search on some BlackBerries to Bing. Which seemed also at the time a very odd move considering that I think this was right after they launched the Droid, where it was, you know, why aren't they, all of a sudden, why aren't they supporting Google and they're supporting Bing? I think it's interesting in terms, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with these search players now, and we see things like Bing powering Facebook search, and everybody's doing a deal with Twitter to get their real-time results. I think, you know, mix it up a little bit. You know, if people want to try out other search engines, if Yahoo wants to pretend that it's still in search,
it's still relevant. Yeah, exactly.
Did I say that?
Relevant search engine.
I mean, sure. You know, I'm sure they approached AT&T and worked out some kind of deal, and
I'm sure that any backflip user out there can download a Google search widget and override that silly Yahoo business. We already talked a little bit about the Nexus One multi-touch issues, so I don't think we'll kind of skip over that. Sure. But I read about this and I thought it was great that Google is giving top developers a free Droid or a Nexus One phone. If you developed an app with 5,000 plus unique downloads, at least a 3.5 star rating, you could fill out a form. Google would email you, and you could fill out a form to receive either a Motorola Droid or a Nexus One, which very cool.
I think it's awesome.
I mean, do you think that this is going to be something that that other I don't see Apple like sending out free iPhones, but well, and,
Yeah,
and
me
really,
neither.
if you're developing for the iPhone, you have an iPhone. I mean, like, there's just no doubt about that. But in terms of Android, I mean, somebody could be developing on, say, a Hero and get a Nexus One and be able to kind of develop cross carrier and cross designer. So I'm very curious as to what you think in terms of do you think that they're going to continue to do this, and also what you think is going to happen in terms of the development market or the developers community?
I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of what we've seen from them before in the strategy surrounding the launch of the Nexus One, and we were sort of talking last week about how they gave everyone at TED a Nexus One, and that's about getting the phones into the hands of influencers, people who are going to evangelize, who are going to love the device, tell their friends, recommend it, and so on. And developers, not only are they in that same class, but then they also have a vested interest in doubling back the efforts that they've put into the Android platform. It's a reward mechanism for them, recognition for them. It's really nice that the guidelines are very clear. It's sort of like, developers can start to look forward to that. Oh, once we get to, the X number of, things, we'll be able to apply and get our phone. I think it's great. I think it's really smart. The more that they're feeding it into the hands of these people who are going to be exactly the people who will spread it out, it's a very different strategy from what we've seen from other people in the past. A great contrast would be with Verizon's strategy with the Droid, where they dropped, 20 million or whatever the insane amount of the ad campaigns in very
Droid does.
Mainstream market, billboards, and TV spots and all this very mainstream sort of let's reach everyone kind of marketing scheme. This is almost the opposite. It's
individual. Put it into a developer's hand, get it out there, get people talking about it, get people developing on it, and we'll sort of do not necessarily word of mouth, but word of platform, where somebody says, I developed for this website, and I want to tell everybody how great the Nexus One is, or the Droid is.
Excellent. And it's a good investment in the platform as opposed to just a particular device as well. They're getting it out there, getting the buzz for Android, and I think it's a good strategy. It's certainly different, and it seems to be working well in terms of certainly keeping the technology media on its toes, very interested about Android. There's always news to cover, and I think it's a good strategy. I think it's working well for them.
Now, on the flip side of phones that have Android on them, I had not heard of this until this week, and I feel kind of like an idiot for missing it. But Android has a hub concept, and they have sort of unveiled this phone. It's a cordless home phone. First of all, I'm not exactly sure who has a landline anymore to use a phone. I'm like, what? I'm sorry, I don't understand. What do I do with this? But I'm very curious as to, we've heard about Google buying all this fiber, and we've heard rumblings of Google starting their own communications company like AT&T, where they're doing landlines, and they're doing. I mean, do you think this is another step in that direction? I mean, what do you think that Google is trying to get from, or Android in general, trying to get from this particular concept?
I think some of it is about the strategy of being very wide-ranging with Android. It's not just on phones. It's in ebook readers. It's in netbooks. It's in this device, which has a little bit of. There are a few other quasi similar devices like the Sony Dash, which is another sort of little personal. It's like a communication device meets alarm clock for the 21st century. iRiver has another product called the Wave Home that reminds me a little bit of this product. So there's a little bit of we've seen similar things in the market before. There's a little bit of a precedent, and why not? put Android on it, see if it gets some adoption, see if it works. It almost seems like part of this great experiment to see how far Android can be stretched. You know,
That's true.
How flexible and how versatile it is, and if it works in this new kind of device, then so be it. But yeah, who does have a landline anymore?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, and it doesn't. You won't have access to the Android market, although it will work over Wi-Fi. It seems like such a strange thing to be like, oh, we're going to unveil this in 2010. Like, unveil it, 6 years ago when people were still like barely using land. Like, that seems like a really strange thing to me. I'm very curious to see what happens with this, if anything at all. Yeah. This really like takes off. But then again, wasn't it some statistic the other day saying that I think it was like 30% of Americans either don't have internet or like some ridiculously large and unacceptable number of people who don't have the internet. Like, and I was just like blown away by. I'm like, I don't know anybody who doesn't have the internet.
Were these people under the age of 2?
Or living under a rock? Or I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, it was just such a weird statistic. I'll email you the actual.
Cool. Yeah.
Like, I'll email you that article because I read it and I was just like, that can't be right. Like, people are lying. Like, people are like, no, I don't have internet.
Internet?
They're sending an email to say, no, I don't have any internet. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I'm sending you this email from the library.
I've never heard of it. That thing will never take off. Internet, forget it.
No, never take off.
I just read something on Newsweek about that.
I tried to look up, what was it, is it Trafalgar?
Trafalgar.
I tried to look up Trafalgar, and it was ridiculous on 8-year-old's paper, and oh man, that article was so great. I laughed and laughed when I read that article. So Android 2.1, big rumor. I don't know, honestly, I don't really know how much I believe this to be true. Android 2.1 coming to all US Android phones?
It would be awesome.
It'd be awesome, but for me, highly unlikely, I think.
I mean, I can see Google would be exactly the kind of company that would have the foresight to work with partners and say, here's a bit of the future roadmap. If you want to be able to support into, X.1 version, here's what your minimum standards have to support, kind of thing. So, it makes a little bit of sense, and we just saw a leaked version of 2.1 for the Droid Ares. In this week. So.
And there's a lot of 2.1 leaks. ROMs coming out. People are just they're dying to have it on their phones. So they're just like, I'll do anything.
Yeah, and I mean it's in the interest of everyone for that to happen. Consumers want it. Google wants it because it's the latest and greatest, and you can get all the new things like live wallpaper and so forth. What's coming in the new versions, and if it's technically possible. If they can do it through firmware upgrade or over-the-air type of thing, then why not do it? Sure.
I can't imagine maybe 2.1, but I don't see very much beyond that. I mean, if there's like another, if they've got 3.0 or 3.1 coming out, I don't see a lot of phones that were originally made as 1.5,
right.
1.6. I don't see them being able to upgrade.
Right.
This is going to be if all of them do get upgraded, I don't see them all getting upgraded again.
There's only so far that compatibility can extend, but
What do you mean I can't upgrade from Windows 98 to Windows 7? I'm very upset.
You won't even be able to upgrade from Windows 6.5 to Windows 7 Phone 7 series.
I know.
Which is the best name for a mobile OS ever. It just rolls right off the tongue.
I know, it's very quick.
So concise. It's just very...
But no, I can't, I can't believe that either, the Windows Mobile thing. I was like, I feel really bad for all those people with Windows 6.5. Like that's,
and the developers who developed all those apps.
Yeah, they worked so hard to develop those apps, and they're like, no, sorry. Hate to break it to you.
We're just gonna
not backwards compatible.
Do something different.
Yeah, we're just going to go in an entirely different direction. Although, again, totally a Microsoft thing to do. They did it with the Xbox.
And also, having been a Windows Mobile user from back in the day, it was something that had to happen. I mean, from what we've seen of 7 series, it's really a completely new OS, built from the ground up, from an entirely different development
It's such a major change.
It had to happen.
Well, and again, with the Xbox and the 360, same concept. Such a different framework, different foundation, everything. So to be able to say, well, everything is backwards, it's just not going to happen. They may get something like on WebOS, they did an old Palm like interface and everything. If you liked the old way,
the classic
interface, and but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel
see.
bad.
We'll see how far it goes.
And the very last thing is the Entourage Edge. I've heard a lot of things about this.
Yeah,
it's the dual screen Android ebook reader. Dual screens. Runs mobile OS Android. They said I believe it'll start with 1.6, and it will be upgraded to 2.1 sometime in around April. But again, developers speak like when it's ready.
Right.
Which probably means like May or June. But April would be awesome. And it'll handle the benefits of the newer OS. It'll be able to handle everything. And but the one thing that I really thought was great is that they have the dual screens. One of them's e-ink, and then the other one is LCD.
Yep.
So you're getting the best of both worlds on this.
Yep. And I actually had a chance to see this device and get a demo at CES, and I was pretty impressed, actually. And it's a little bit of a different entrance into, sort of a hybrid between a netbook and an e-reader. So like you were saying, you get the best of both worlds. You get the longer battery life from having the e-ink, and you can actually turn off the LCD altogether to conserve battery life if you're just reading a book. But for students, you can have, something that you're reading open and then be taking notes in the other
which is great.
pane, which is so cool. I mean, I wish I had one of those when I was in school. Are you kidding? It'd be awesome.
I know. And the one thing I love that it, the feature of the note taking. I mean, you can highlight text.
Yeah, you can annotate everything.
Yeah, you can send that to an index. If like if you're writing a research paper and you're going through a 500-page book about, the history of witch hunting in Salem,
Is that what's on your Kindle right now?
I took a class on that. Was like the first thing that came to my head. That I took a class on that in college. It was actually called like witchcraft and something else. It was a great class. I had so much fun reading about that stuff because it's such a lighthearted subject.
Oh, totally. Bedtime reading.
Yeah, totally. And but I just to read through something like that that's so dense with court documents and just information, recounting. Stories about different things from actual towns. So I mean, something like that where you can highlight, send it to an index, and then come back to it later and say, these are the important things that I needed from this. And now I can put that away and focus on my notes is just, I mean, I would have killed for something like that in college.
Yeah,
that would have been so great. Plus mass media law and ethics. Like that's something you gotta have. Like it's so densely packed with information. It's just and I disagree. E-ink is a dodo. So one of our chatters says e-ink is a dodo, and I don't agree. I think it'll be around for a while.
I think we've got some color e-ink technologies on the horizon that are pretty cool. We saw a few of them at CES also, and there's one actually based on the same technology that allows a butterfly's wings to shimmer, which I think is one of the coolest,
I had not heard
technology references. And I think once those screens get into devices, people are going to come back again. I think there's definitely been a shift since the announcement of the iPad away from e-reader devices. And in fact, we saw a graph today, I think it was from Silicon Alley Insider, they did a study on people who had bought a Kindle, and they asked them whether or not they would still have bought that Kindle if they had known about the iPad at the time. Like if the iPad had been out at the same time as the Kindle, would they still have bought that? And less than half of them said that they would still have bought the Kindle. So I think we've shifted.
Well, but I think that's fair. Because if I owned, if I had a Kindle and then I knew about the iPad, like if I had just bought a Kindle and then 2 weeks later the iPad got announced, I would be furious. I would just be like, I don't want this. This is a piece of junk. Like, I mean, not to call the Kindle a piece of junk, but I would just be like, I don't want this. I want that. Like, that's awesome. So, especially after that presentation they just had this week with the kids' books, and I mean, oh my God.
Yeah. But I mean, once color e-ink gets up to speed where you can actually do things like video and have, the fast page refreshes too, plus all that amazing battery life, then I think we'll start to see e-readers have sort of another renaissance for people who really just do a lot of reading and need that on the go.
And people who start dropping their iPads and cracking the glass.
Ooh, that'll be...
I'm not going to look for... I almost look forward to, like, you know, the website that's going to be... Or iPad in a blender. I wonder if they're going to do a bigger blender, some kind of large... like maybe a wood chipper, iPad and a wood chipper,
I can't
to break all the geek hearts. I mean, it would just when I saw the very first ones of the iPhone in a blender, I was just like, oh, why would somebody do that? Like, that just seems so horrible.
Like
but now I kind of look forward to like every new device getting tossed into a blender. So
you like the takedowns?
I do. I love the takedowns. But well, I think that is all we have time for today, I should say. I would like to thank my wonderful co-host, Barb Dybwad, today, senior editor, Mashable.com, and we can find you on Twitter at Dr. Paradox.
Indeed.
Which
yes.
I found you already, so
good.
I'm stalking you on Twitter.
Oh, good. And now that I divulge my location, I'm going to be looking behind me. Is Ashley here?
Exactly. No, I will be following you. And then Edward Kim, or Eddie Kim, who created Car Locator. We'd like to thank him as well for being on the show, our app of the week. And you can find him on Twitter at Edaward, EDAWERD. And I am your host, Ashley Esqueda, and you can find me at Heartless Jez, J-E-Z. Everyone's like, Jez, what does that mean? But J-E-Z. And this has been This Week in Android. We'll see you next week.